Okay, so if you want to keep talking about it, I'll gladly say a few things. Yeah, yeah, why not? Might as well. It's all derailed right now. I feel like at some point I'm just gonna have to accept that the topics that I have planned for my streams are gonna come secondary to actually talking about them. All right. Hey.
Hey, sorry.
Oh no, it's all right. I was just saying, like I think at
Okay,
some
can you
point
hear
I'm
me?
just gonna accept with like how popular I get as the topics that I pick going in are gonna be more like a side thing than the actual thing. So
Shit. Give me a second.
I do know that football gamer. We heard about that last night. But yeah, you wanna fill in where I'm where I couldn't. Are you there? Uh oh. Whoa. What happened?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, somehow you got moved back to call waiting. That was weird.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, so I can hear you on your stream, but I can't hear you in Discord. That is
Oh,
so
okay,
weird.
okay, okay, okay. That's probably my bad. Um, hello, hello, hello.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Oh, okay, okay, good,
That works.
good, okay.
Okay. Well, sorry. I didn't want to derail anything, but I felt like maybe it's good if I clear a few things up.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't. I easily get out of my depth when we get into like the more um intricacies of like people being transgender. Um, and I recognize that. I'd much rather have somebody who knows a lot more on the subject talk about it. Thanks for the host, Carpe Packs. Than me say something wrong. So
Mm,
yeah, that's why I'm completely
fair
okay
enough.
with dragging you in on this.
Okay. Well, so I guess that the simplest answer is it's not that simple. Um,
Mm-hmm.
while the fact of the matter is that we do not know where being trans comes from. We also do not know where being gay comes from or where being bisexual comes from. So we just have to assume most of it. And the thing is that I guess you could definitely say, however, that there's evidence for both things. For example, there has been a lot of research done in the fields in medical fields when it comes to analyzing brain and brain structure, where you can definitely say that there's a difference in male or female brain structures. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in male or female brains, if you want to call it them, that then there's certain areas active, and you can also say that that is the case in many trans people. However, it is very hard to say if, at this point at least, if there's a significant difference before uh, any any hormone therapy. For example, my brain right now is a female brain because of hormones, but it can just as easily be the case without any hormones at all. Like, um, my brain could have been female when I was born, even without estrogen. Um, but there's no actual studies on that yet. There has not been any research done explicitly to find out if something is the case before transition and after transition. Very simply because it's often a bit harder to analyze trans people's brain before transitioning, because before transitioning is also very oftentimes before coming out. So you see the kind of difficulty that creates.
Yeah, essentially, when you choose to come out, that's essentially when you choose to also transition. Um, so it would be kind of pointless. It'd be difficult to prove, you'd have to like somehow assume that somebody is going to turn out that way, which is not right either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the thing is, however, that mostly that mostly goes for binary trans people, and I don't want to include any non-binary people who are also trans. Um, and while we can say that there's a structure for a female brain and a male brain in terms of some areas being more active in quote unquote male brains and some being more active in quote unquote female brains, that we can say for absolute sure that there is such a thing. So it's actually pretty logical that there is something in between and
Mm-hmm.
that people are born with that in between.
Does this
And
get into what ScuffedLeftie is saying? He says there's very, very slight difference in size in some parts of the brain because males uh, are usually larger overall, but there's no way to determine who's male slash female based on the brain alone because they are within the norms of each other.
yeah, except male brains are not larger.
Okay.
That's actually an old myth that, and because by the way, it's also a myth that brain size, of course, as we know, has to do anything with being able to think better.
Posted a link. The myth that men and women have different brains. The hunt for male and female distinctions inside the skull is a lesson in bad research practice. Uh, Try and get to a conclusion. See here. Changing Minds. Final Focus explains the book titles and new neuroscience that shatters the myth of the female brain for a volume about debunking brain difference. Why narrow it to women? At first, I thought it was a stab at Luann Brizendine's 2006 female brain skewered in these very pages, or perhaps it's to underscore how the female brain has been sized up as strange variant of the real thing, much as we refer to female physicist or female surgeon. Whatever the subtitle, the book accomplishes its goals of debunking the concept of a gendered brain. The brain is no more gendered than the liver or kidneys or heart. Towards the end, Ripon flirts with the implication of this finding for the growing number of people transitioning or living between current binary gender categories. But for now, she concludes, most of us remain strapped in the biosocial straitjackets that divert a basically unisex brain down one culturally gendered pathway or another. So that's interesting.
Brain size has mostly to do with skull size. I probably should clarify that in brain size, I was rather talking about the abilities of man or female brain, for example. That should definitely be said. That
So,
um,
so
as
more or
far as I
less.
know, female brain versus male brain is a stand of transmedicalism. Yeah, I already mentioned that. I literally already mentioned that. I said that this is mostly excluding non binary people, which is not a good thing. However, just because it is there and there are differences, like I literally just told you that I not support that. Well, what do you think I am if I say I don't support this kind of thing?
Uh,
And I said
she
that
she
that,
she
that those kind of things are not good.
she also did address that there's a way that the brain exists that shows that it can be in between too. Thus, talking about the spectrum where you can get into
Yeah,
envy.
exactly.
Hey, doggos.
That was where
Thanks
I
for the
was
follow.
a
Sorry.
bit interrupted, because the thing is that I wanted to talk about that whenever there's something like that discovered and whenever there's something like differences in how brains work and how brains work differently, and for example how hormones affect brains, and they do, like, you can look that up. That's and you already know that probably.
Let,
Hormones do affect brains, hormones do affect the body.
let me
So
let me see if I can kind of like state this in like a more like kind of concise and clearer way, I guess. Um, so essentially, what you're talking about is like, and it could be from societal things too, like societal culture that men and women currently use different parts of their brain more, therefore changing the physical structure of those specific parts that control like certain moods or certain tendencies, and
Exactly.
that can be related to more social things because of the way that we view masculinity and femininity, right?
Exactly. And that is all I'm talking about. Because some structures, some areas in the brain can be more active with women than with men, for example. But the thing is that once we have settled in that there is a binary, or once people claim that there would be a binary difference, that pretty much already means that there is going to be a scale on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like we know, every time we came up and said, that is a binary, that is a binary, that is a binary, we later had to retract that and had to see that, well, it's not that simple. It's actually a scale. Just like sex, just like sexuality. When we came up with sexuality and said, well, you're either homosexual or you're bisexual, then Kinsey came and said, well, it's not that different. It's not that difficult. It's not that easy. Sorry, it's a scale. And the same can is what we can say with gender. Well, it's not that easy. It's a
Yeah.
scale. And the same can be said with sex, with
Orientation.
genitals. Yeah, no, I mean, sexuality is orientation in that case,
Mm-hmm.
but the
Yeah,
same can
yeah.
be said with sex in terms of genital, for example. It's also not a binary. It's a scale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if we clear that up, we will likely find the same evidence in terms of brain activity and in terms of biological symptoms of being transgender. That
Oh,
means
I
that,
gotta ask this or answer this really quick from Bloodmast. No, intersex is considered a condition. These things, the medical definitions for these things are very apparent, and they mean certain things. So to call it a disorder would say that it was something wrong with the body, um, and that it would be causing problems with the body to properly function. Being born intersex is not a disorder because you can live your entire life that way if your family when you're a baby chooses to allow you to do so, or if
oh
you
yeah,
and you
absolutely.
later just decide to never bother to change it. But you can live the rest of your life for that, so that makes it a condition that you're born with. Sort of like being born with blue eyes is a condition. It's a condition because it's not technically natural to be born with blue eyes. You know, you can learn that a lot about that from learning more about biology and genetics. Because like
Yeah.
it's essentially a mutation, but to
Um,
call it that has
I
a
would
negative connotation. So it's
exactly.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a condition. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have I understood your argument? Wait, I mean,
It
yes,
is a
but
disorder if
would
it
she
prevents you
agree
from
that
embracing
if
masculinity or
someone,
femininity to the fullest. But that's a societal thing. That's a societal thing. That's a societal requirement to embrace those things in that way. That has nothing to do with your physicality. That has nothing to do with any condition that you can have. Therefore, it is a condition. You can live with it your entire life and it not change anything about your life, except for how society treats you, how which way you present more as. Society is going to treat you in that way. Therefore, it's going to define how you react to certain things yourself. And you know,
oh,
I th-
I wondered, why I have, like, I was thinking you were reading something from the chat, and I
oh
couldn't
I
fucking
am
see
I
it. And I couldn't, yeah, I know, and I couldn't fucking see it at all. And now I see it in your stream. So it
yo
must be someone I blocked.
yeah
So there's probably a good reason for that already.
yeah. You are disadvantaged if you are intersex. Is my point, but
Bullshit. bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, like, in what way? In what way does that work? Like, this is why I say, you know, the term condition is a real medical distinction. Disorder has the like cancer is a disorder. You know, AIDS is a disorder. Like these words mean things. You can be
Um,
born with some form of either of those two, but that doesn't change them from being a disorder. But when it comes to something like intersex, you can be born with that, but it's not something that's going to cause difficulty in your life except for societally and nothing else.
yeah, absolutely.
So we as a
You can
society need to be better on that.
absolutely, and that's by the way, what most of studies in terms of transgender issues say, that when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to mental health problems with transgender people, I did a lot of research on that, and most studies that I've discovered say that exact thing, that the only problem, or the only problem that is created for that is because of how we treat transgender people in society. And by the way, scuffed lefty, no, it's not really what I'm saying. I don't think that is entirely up for being raised a certain way. I think that there's a component of how you are raised, maybe, probably, could be, I don't know. But there is definitely a biological component in terms of how our brain are structured at birth. And the fact of the matter is that being transgender is not something new. For example, what Micah said with comparing that to fascism and shit like that. That is not a comparison, because it's not a choice. Being gay is also not a choice. Being bisexual is also not a choice. um it's just not that simple. But becoming a Nazi, that is a choice, because being a Nazi is literally something that per definition only exists since a few decades in our history. But being trans is something that can be seen throughout our history. There's a re- there's kind of, how do you say that, historical records on a emperor of Rome who was considered to be trans, who how they were described can be considered to be trans, and so on. There's other records in history of historical figures that could be considered trans, as to how they were described, how they acted, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you can definitely say that has been around for pretty much ever. So there has to be a biological component to it. However, I would say that there's also a difference in how we see gender today, and that has to be taken into account. I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying there's a genetic biological difference between male and female brain? I say that can be.
Yeah.
I
What
say
what what she's what
that's
she's saying is like because of how society views masculinity and femininity, us being drawn into these societal roles, we use different parts of our brain more, which can affect the structure of our brain inside of it. Because different moods and uh, uh, different things you use your brain for more or less. No, that is what she's saying. That's why I clarified that earlier. Like I asked her to make sure that that's what she was saying. She agreed with me on that. Like you're using your brain more. It's conditional upon the society you live in.
exactly.
How
I'm saying both. I'm literally saying both.
you
Like,
don't come out of the womb this way, but when you live in the world that is so binary, that's how your brain turns out. It's one of those sorts of things. You know,
yeah,
like how men are more predisposed to committing suicide. You don't come out of the womb that way, but society drives that through men, through the number of ways that toxic masculinity affects you.
exactly. Um, but being trans is still not a choice in that case, because um there's still a difference, for example, whether or not you are able uh, to adapt with a certain gender or to identify with a certain gender.
Mm-hmm.
That is something completely different, and I think
Oh,
that there
100%.
can, yeah, that there can be a biological reason for that. Like I said, just as sex is something inherently biological. However, it's still a scale, and however, it's still not a binary. And by the way, when it comes to intersex, Lady Raincloud always explains that very good. I really have to ask her again to tell me that once again.
Oh,
Um,
what was it specifically?
when it comes to intersex, that
Oh, yeah.
it's not actually a anomaly or anything. It's actually just part of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh
know,
yeah,
we
that's why I
there's a
say it's
special.
a condition. Like, that guy followed up by saying something about how, he used the M word, but dwarfism is a disorder. It's not. That's why I pulled it up really quick. The medical definition of dwarfism is it's a condition. You're not going to die from being born with dwarfism. There are some disorders that can come with it, but it inherently is not anything more than a condition that you can continue to live with, and this is same way with intersex, and to look at it as this way that it's like this anomaly that is inherently negative is just
Uh,
it's not right. It's
I'm a
not right.
neurosexist, by the way. Now,
Oh, me?
surprisingly, that was no me. I am. That was fast. Wow. You never know what you are until people call you it. No, I do not believe that. You explicitly say there's gender differences. I literally said that is not that is mostly not the point to it. I
There,
said
it's
that
it's
this is about,
societal.
yeah, this is about gender is mostly inherently societal. So that is the societal part of it.
But your
The thing is
proclivities
that,
can lean towards one
yeah,
side of the spectrum over the other, and you can choose to kind of identify and represent as your mental proclivities lean. Right? Am I saying that right?
okay, wait, let me try to clarify all of that shit up, because I think there's a big misunderstanding.
Okay.
So I'm saying that there's a genetic component to it when it comes to different types of influences that are made, for example, through fucking hormones. Scuffed Lefty, if you want to look that up, then you will find there is a fucking difference that hormones make
I
in
think this
your
is
in
getting a
your
little too heated. Like, guys, let's try not to be very uh like
Okay,
abrasive to each other.
okay.
Um, maybe
That's,
kind of.
yeah,
I
nobody's
I, I
arguing
think
that, but that's literally what I'm saying.
yeah.
Like,
I
let's
think there's an
start
extent
from.
that both of you are kind of talking past each other. So like let's try it and listen a little bit more. I think you guys are essentially saying the same thing but in different ways. And I mean it could be
Yes.
you both English is your second both of your second language. So there could be something lost in translation there. That is a possibility. I just want to make sure that everybody gets along. you know, because I
We're
know
getting
Scuff
along.
Lefty
It's
is
just
is on your
I
side.
really don't like to be put in some corner, like saying, like claiming, first of all, claiming going towards, well, kind of already putting me in the true scum corner, and then putting me in the neurosexist corner. Like, I think that's honestly a little bit shitty. The
Yeah,
thing is that,
yeah, Scuffed Lefty. This is why I interjected the way that I did is we we pointed out that no, this is not something that's inherent at birth. It's societal that you're going to use different parts of your brain because of the way our society treats on a binary scale how people present. Um, but beyond that, that doesn't mean that you can't still be trans and have like inner proclivities that lean towards one more than the other. So the idea that it's masculine versus feminine is some standards that we create as a society versus like it being inherent in just the idea of being one way towards the spectrum versus the other. If we treated
Correct.
women the way that we treat men, those same things that are different in the brain after living in that way would be similar to men's, and vice versa.
Society decides how female and males think based on past data. What do you mean by that? How did we create something like gender when there was no past data, when there was literally no historical records?
Yeah.
The thing is that
And what past data from what society? There's a number of societies that
exactly.
have operated in genders in between and otherwise. Like there's so many. There's a number of them and made over centuries. Yeah, there's longer studies of like people choosing to do this in several different societies. We just have a very fucked up binary view of things now because we chose to, and we choose to ignore it here in America. I mean, there's places like India where they have a third gender, a third gender. I forgot the name of them. There's a number of societies that have existed like that. So, to say that that's not true. We, as in like America, may have always for the only 200 years that we've existed, but that's not a very big sample size to say always. Not we as humans. That's a completely different thing, Micah. Right? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had to get that out because that frustrates
Okay.
me. Just trying to fit. No, you're not trying to fit in then.
He's honestly he's a troll. Like,
Micah goes back and forth. This is where he's teetering on the edge. I've had to time him out a few times, but he's never said anything that's been bad enough to get banned.
yeah.
So, I'm trying
Um.
to decide.
Okay. I'm trying to make that point again here. What I think the major difference is. So there's
Do
a
you,
few
do you
things.
mind if ScuffedLeftie comes in the call?
Sure thing.
Yeah, he just says
Um.
he wants to clarify some things.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, let me send him the Discord. Yeah, come on in. Go into call waiting, and I'll drag you in. I've got like a half an hour, just so you guys know, or actually less than that. I got like 20 minutes.
Okay. I mean, we can also do that on my stream sometime.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You also should come on my stream, by the way, sometime to justify the sock dams in 1918.
It's not going to be that much of an argument, honestly. I think there's going to be a lot we
Huh?
agree
Can you hear
on
me?
that. And yeah, hi, by the way, Scuffed.
Hey.
Yeah,
Hey.
I
So
think we'll.
I'm
Yeah, go
really
ahead.
I'm really sorry. I'm a bit sick, so my voice is almost gone.
Okay.
So I'm really sorry if you felt like I was calling you like a true scum or something, because that really wasn't my intention at all. I was
Well,
just
in that case, you should probably wait a bit with those kind of terms if you throw them around, and wait till you actually know what my point is, because you already said you weren't sure. So it's not very productive to do that.
no. I was well. What I was trying to do was talk about I guess the argument of neurosexism, which has been used by like trans medicalists.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what I'm telling you. You should
yeah.
probably
Yeah,
wait a
she
bit
she was not
if you
making
throw
that
around those
argument.
kind of terms until you're actually sure what I think or what I do not think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree. It might have been a bit rash of me, and I'm sorry
Okay,
for sure.
all good. So to kind of try to elaborate my point here, I think that there is inherently a biological component when it comes to things like sex. in a biological component that can be explained through the effects that hormones have on our brain.
Mm-hmm.
I earlier talked about, when I talked about the thing about female or male brains, that um, there was this claim, and there are still a lot of people who make this claim, and it's not entirely out of the way. Um, but for example, when it came to trans people, binary trans people who underwent hormone therapy, there was a possibility to make this kind of claim. But here's the thing: nobody knows if it's actually just the effects of hormones on the brain, or if it's actually just something different. If it's, for example, if it, for example, was there before. So I never actually claimed in the first place that this was that people were born with. I said that it could be, but I just said that it's not. If that is the case, and if people are born like that, then that most likely means, in all likeness to what we discovered today, until today, about certain kind of things like the non-existing the non-existing sexuality binary, the non-existing gender binary, and so on. It's actually just logical to say in the end that there's no such thing as a binary towards either a male brain or either a female brain. I think that it's rather a scale, but I don't think that it defines most aspects of gender. For example, your brain sure as shit not doesn't define if you like dresses or not, because that's not in our DNA, and that's not in genetics. Like that can literally have nothing at all to do with that. Just the same as in certain gender roles.
Sure.
Um,
But
but I think
can I,
that there's a inevitable, and like I said, this is based on the effects that hormones have. That there is a way that changes trans people. For example, when we undergo hormone therapy, and I saw that in my own example, and if you can ask any other binary trans person or any trans person who underwent any form of transition, of medical transition in terms of hormone therapy, it does make a change. It does make an impact in your behavior, in how you act, in how you react, and so on.
I mean,
That
yeah,
can make a
because like
change.
the thing about it is like the things that interact with our body during, say, uh uh God, I'm forgetting words. Um,
Okay.
Adolescence. Uh, going through puberty. That's the word I'm thinking of. The
Yeah.
way the different chemicals that are released uh, from puberty are inherent to a body type, and they do have an effect on the brain. But
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
but
Just the
would you
same as pregnancy, by the way.
yeah,
but
yeah.
would you say that men and women are born with different brains, and then those brains are affected
No,
by chemicals?
no, no, no.
I would say that I don't know. Very
Okay,
simply put, I don't know. I have no idea if that is the case or not. It can be based on some research that has been done in the past. I consider the possibility, but I wouldn't say that is necessarily the case until we have actually empirical proof of something. And as of right now, there is no empirical proof of it, but there is also no empirical
mm,
proof completely against and opposed to it.
but
So it's still a possibility, but
but
not, like I said earlier, not everything that comes with different kinds of brains and different activities in brains based on, for example, a binary concept of male and female. And once again, I do not like that concept because I don't think that is true. Um, but even if that is the case, then it doesn't apply to most specific gender roles that we coin today and that we define today. Um, for example, like women wearing dresses and women cooking and shit like that. That has literally nothing to do with that.
but what do you consider like empirical proof? So
Um,
something like
a
maybe a book by scientists or like studies or?
Yeah, if there are more studies on that, I have to do the research on my own. I don't know that much about it.
Sure. I mean,
Um,
I would just. I mean, I understand if you haven't looked into it, but yeah, that was basically the
but
only thing I was talking about.
empirical proof mostly means that we can prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt. And so far,
I
there
mean,
is doubt.
I mean, when we say we can prove something, it's just a certain percentage, right? I mean, only 97% of climate scientists say that climate change is real, but there is a doubt, right? There is at least 3% who say that it's not real, but we still know it's real, right?
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like that seems a bit
Sure.
nitpicky, to be honest.
No, yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, there's been a lot of studies in years about this, and they say that there's no like inherent difference like in genetic between male and female brains, like when they start, like not when they are affected by chemicals and hormones and stuff, but like when they pop out of the womb.
Okay, so what is the percentage?
What do you mean?
What is the percentage? You talked about the percentage in climate change. What is the percentage there?
I mean, I don't think we look at science in like percentage. I mean, I
So,
would.
how do you prove something empirically?
I mean, you look at like the consensus on trusted science journals and like websites and stuff.
Trusted
Or, like,
science. Do you know the whole thing with vaccination, where that came from? Wasn't that a publication in the
yeah,
Trusted Science in this Trusted Science magazine?
sure, but if you're using this as an argument, then you're basically saying we can never trust science, and I think that's a bit.
No, I'm not saying we can never trust science, but I'm saying that if you just solely base that on this, then it's gonna get a bit icky.
I mean, if you have an article on nature.com, which is like a huge science recognized news journal.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
And
and
they
it says
make
that the
mistakes
myth that,
sometimes.
I mean, sure, but then there's like refutations and stuff, and then you can look at that. But like, seems like there is no like refutations of this. It's just like recognized. I mean, I mean, I'm not a scientist myself. I don't know. I would just trust like.
I mean, this is why I bring up like the societal difference having an effect on like the uses in your brain. Like, yes, you can't look at a brain on its own and decide whether it's male or female, and you also can't even look into it and see what's used more. And like the way the different spots of the brain changes based on the different uses that you society use when you're defined as male or female, masculine or feminine. And decide that, because there's a possibility that there's women who were treated more masculine, and
Yeah,
there were
and
men that were treated more feminine, or
yeah, and
were
I think this is
inherently.
like an extremely pro-trans position that I'm talking about. Like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that there's no gender difference between male and like a brain of a male and a brain of a female means that anyone can transition from one gender to the other and not be missing something inherent, right? They
Oh
don't need
yeah,
to be
yeah. Inherently, yes. It's all
yeah.
societal.
It's all societal. That's what I'm saying. There's no
So
genetics, and that's
yeah,
I
but
think that's the
then you can
most
just as well argue it is
pro-trans.
a choice.
Then what is a choice?
Then being trans is a choice.
I mean, if you really want to get down into it, I mean, you can say that anything is like a choice or isn't a choice, right? I mean, if you want to get philosophical about it, like you can't
I'm not
really
getting
choose.
philosophical here. I'm taking what you just
No,
said.
but
Like
when
literally.
you're saying the word choice, it's a loaded word, right? I mean, you can't really choose how your brain reacts to different things.
Yeah, now we back to brain.
Yeah.
So what is the difference then? If it doesn't have to do anything with brain, then what's the difference?
So how do you make a choice?
How Going back
But
to what you just said, if it's just up to gender roles and if it's all up to society and roles in society, then it can effective. Then people like Micah would have a point, and then it can effectively be a choice, just like being gay is a choice. And
no,
then you can
because
also therapize someone and go ahead with fucking
no,
conversion therapy
because
because it was a choice. Then
that's a mischaracterization of
all
what we
right, then
mean
explain
when
it
we.
to me.
Yeah, because it's a misnomer about what it means to have a choice. Because you can't. Do you choose to become hungry? No, you don't choose to become hungry.
And does that have only to do with society? Does hunger only have to do with society?
Um, I mean, you can say that some parts of hunger has to do with society in terms
So
of
if
like
there
when
was no
we eat.
Well,
society, we would
I was gonna
not have
say
hunger.
something similar, just like it's a poverty
I mean,
argument,
when we
but
eat,
honestly,
like eating patterns and like what kinds of food we eat, all control like the
So you're
way
not
that we
hungry
hunger.
without society.
I mean, yes, but you can be hungry in
Well, then
different ways.
hunger doesn't really have to do with society in that term that it's only defined by society and it's only dependent on society. That is not the case then, right?
Okay, wait. So let's back up a bit.
I think I
So
think I think I see what I'm saying. What you're saying. Let me see if I can. So essentially, what you're saying is like, um, there are certain naturally forming things with people that can be that you can be born with, but there is a lot of societal pressure based on treatment. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
who me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the vast majority of most of the things that affect you is based on like nurture, like nature versus nurture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean there's very little. I mean that whole distinction is kind of arbitrary because whatever happens in your nurture is kind of based on nature as well. So it's really a meaningless point. But for sure, I mean societal is what I would say 100% of the thing that makes you one gender or the other. And I would say there is 0% that is genetic in terms of like coded into your brain at birth that you can never change. And I'm
So
just
you think that
curious.
hormones have no effect?
It's sort of an
No,
it's sort of a
I mean, am I?
difficult.
Then hormones do play a role, and that it's not 100% society, right?
I mean, I'm not. I'm not. Am I? Am I
You said
communicating
it's
it
just
wrong,
attributed
Mark?
100% to society,
Yeah,
and
it's
and
not
that means
100%.
that it has nothing to do with biology whatsoever. That excludes hormones, so hormones have no point in that, right? What's your point?
Hormones
Okay.
do change like how you present, and the idea could be that taking those hormones is to fit into a
Okay.
binary role that you
Okay.
see, right?
So where are hormones produced?
Well, it depends on the
In both
hormones.
genitals and brain.
Yeah. Generally defined as like the gonads in both. And please, nobody in chat giggle. We're adults here. We're going to act like adults. I said gonads.
Okay, so would you say? Let me ask you. Would you say that there is something that you are born with as a man that you can never change, no matter how much you try, and you can never become like 100% like a female?
Oh
Are you
yes,
asking? Are you asking as of right now?
there actually is, yeah.
What?
Yes. Wait. Was that a
Ovaries.
yes or was that a no? I didn't hear that.
Ovaries is the main thing, and this is where you get into like slightly turf territory.
I was asking Dario. Dario, was that a yes or was that a no?
Yeah, I'm asking. I guess specifically in the brain.
As of right
Maybe.
now,
Sure.
absolutely.
Okay. So what?
I wish I had a uterus. That's not gonna happen.
Okay. So I guess I amended it by saying in the brain.
Well, then you should probably say that. And I don't know.
I think I might have
Could
interrupted
not
him.
be.
Yeah, I said it.
That's my bad. That's my fault, Kiara.
Okay.
We're
Be.
doing
Okay,
our
so-
best to be
so
charitable to each other.
Okay,
Okay.
so I feel like we're going back. I'm really not trying to be disrespectful or anything. All I'm saying is that we obviously disagree insofar as you are saying you don't know, and I'm saying the science currently says that it's not true.
Yeah, and I'm saying
I'm not qualified to like convince you or anything. The only thing I can do is that I can link you like articles from big science papers.
I can
and
do
journals.
my research. Thank you.
Sure, and I mean, if you want to look it up, you're welcome to. I mean, I don't think, I mean, I'm not a scientist and I'm not qualified to go into details. I'm just saying maybe look it up and.
I'm just taking an issue with you saying that this is 100% based on society, which I do not agree with. And I think there is a biological component, just as there is a biological component to hormones and how
Sure.
they affect us.
Yeah, it's
and
the
how
idea
they
that
affect our behavior. And there's a biological component to, for example, genetics.
Sure. Okay.
You could
And
just as
I
well
it's
as well
essentially the
argue that
idea that
genetics can be a factor in that.
sorry.
You just don't know it.
No, I again, I'm not a scientist and I don't know everything on the topic. The only thing that I can say is in terms of the male versus female brain genetically, the science recently has been pretty clear that, I mean, there is no difference or so little difference that it doesn't matter.
So what is it? There is no difference or there is little difference?
I mean, there is a difference between every single human, right? I mean, what you look at is if there is a.
So there can be a difference then.
I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
I'm saying, if you do you want to make that absolute and say there's no difference, or do you not want to make that absolute and say there's little difference?
The article says the myth that men and women have different brains. This is what the article in the science paper says. So, I mean, whatever you want to chalk that up to, that's up to you. I mean, I'm not here to argue semantics or how science works or all the things. I mean,
yeah, that's not a good argument to have. Like, that'd be pointless.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I feel like you're getting upset with me, and
no, I'm not getting upset.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take my leave then, unless you have something else to say to me.
Wait a second. There's actually something that is from December 2017. That is this right here, of post-mortem research of brains of, for example, transgender people, mostly, I guess. Binary transgender people, meaning that transgender people who underwent some kind of medical transition in terms of hormone therapy. It's not the exact the link to that was in the Wikipedia article to neuroscience of sex differences. There was a different one than you linked me, but it's still there. There's another one at the end of it.
So what does it talk about?
Okay, I can read you the what it says on the Wikipedia page. That probably sums it up. Early postmodern studies of transsexual neurological differentiation was focused on the hypothalamic, sorry, it's my English, and amygdala region of the brain using magnetic resonance imaging (MRI). Some trans women were found to have female typical putamen that were in larger size than cisgender males.
Yeah, but
some trans women also have shown female typical central part of the bad nucleus of the what? Holy shit! Stria terminalis. Sorry, and in
Okay, I mean, you don't
yeah.
have to.
Well, you can read it
Yeah,
yourself. I can
yeah,
send
yeah,
you the
yeah.
link to it.
I'm reading. I'm reading.
Okay,
So I'm just gonna ask.
that's
So would you agree that this study is talking about like transgender people and stuff, like who are grown ups, like already affected by society and everything like that, right?
that's what I told you.
Yeah, but that's again, that's not what I'm talking about ever. That I've never talked
Yeah.
about this.
Yes, exactly. But that's what I said earlier. That's exactly what I meant.
No, but
When I
that's
was that's exactly what I meant when I was talking about that, and I explicitly said it's hard to say if that difference, for example, comes from actually something based on society, or if that is something that is changed by hormones, which it very much so can. It doesn't have to do with society at all. And that difference can just as well be something they were born with. We cannot say, because mostly
but
those kind of tests weren't done before.
yeah, but okay, so I agree with everything you said, except where you say we can't know if it's something you're born with, and that's and the study that you linked me and the things you linked me do not address this issue.
Yes, I know.
Okay, then we
How
I guess
often do you want me to say this?
no, but you just okay.
I literally said I know that the study doesn't do that, but the study says that there is a difference.
Yeah, but I've never said that there isn't.
You
Do you,
said
do
you said there's no difference in male brain or female brains other than for example the size. That's literally what you said. There is no
yeah,
such thing as male and
at
female brains.
yeah at
There's only
birth.
different sizes in
Yeah,
male in
genetic. Yeah, so at birth, like like when they start out before society.
so suddenly it's just at birth then.
I'm, I don't. I mean,
So there
Mark,
can
He,
be
he, he,
a biological
okay, okay,
difference.
okay, okay,
I mean, you can go back to my very first message and see that I've written
okay, okay,
countless
okay,
times.
okay, everybody. All right, hey, let's chill.
Right.
It's getting a little heated. Okay, doesn't need to be. We're all comrades here. Um, yeah, I think what he's talking about is like a baseline of being born, and being born male, assigned at birth. You're more likely to have larger characteristics from that alone, larger head, larger hands, those things are kind of inherent. But at the same time, that's that's the baseline. Like, we have a higher baseline, the higher likelihood assigned at birth males are going to have a larger head or larger hands,
Yes.
versus the average assigned at birth female.
Yes.
I think that's what he's stating as far as like the size idea. It's based on, skull size.
Yes. But the neurology, like the brain functions itself, are not different between males and females at birth, or like
You,
before social influence.
you said that this was 100%, that this effect was 100% based on society. That's what you said.
Yeah.
I
Yes, the
specifically asked you
neurology.
about
Yes,
that.
the neurology. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
The brain.
I'm saying that if you have this study, then it just might as well be hormones. So it might be a biological component.
I mean, I don't I can't answer that because again I'm not a scientist. I'm just stating what the
But you
scientists
can
are
answer other
collectively.
things even if you're not a scientist.
I think
I
the
mean,
baseline agreement you guys could
the
come
only
to, without, because it does appear that the science is not quite there to be able to prove if that there is or isn't a genetic component, and the amount that it plays a role in people who choose to transition in one way or another, whether it's non-binary, whether it's male to
Yeah,
female, female to male,
exactly.
there's the possibility it's there, but the science hasn't quite been there yet.
Yeah,
They
exactly. Thank
believe
you.
a certain way, but sort of inconclusive on it. Like there could be, like of course, none of us deny that there's a societal role in gender and the way your brain turns out after being in society.
Absolutely.
So I think you guys can agree on that, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to tell him. Like we already pretty much agree on everything. The thing is that I'm not saying that there's necessarily that there's necessarily a difference in the brain right away at birth. I think that's, to be honest, I think that's probably unrealistic.
Except for
However,
based on like your
how
physical characteristics, like you're
yeah,
born
wait,
with a
give me a second.
larger head.
However, I think there can be a very much so a genetic difference and a genetic factor in it. Just as well as, for example, bipolar disorder can be a genetic component and can be genetically given from parents to child. It's likely that a child of parents with bipolar disorder will also have bipolar disorder, but that doesn't mean that it's going to show up right away at birth or that it's going to be showing in your brain right away. It's just going to develop. So it can have a genetic component, it might not. I don't
All right.
know. And
Yeah,
that's where science is definitely not clear. And you can bring up evidence against me. I will take a look at that, absolutely. And if I'm
and
wrong, I'm happy to admit it. But in that
Sure.
case, that's not the difference. And that is all I'm saying. Like, I don't believe, yet again, I don't believe the shit in that people are inherently born with certain gender roles. That's just absolute bullshit. We fully agree on that. Don't worry about it. I'm
Sure.
just saying that there can be a genetic component, just as there can be a genetic component to blue eyes and to being gay and to being intersex.
yeah,
Sure.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I, by the way, also don't love like the term anomaly for that, or
yeah,
um,
yeah.
or
It's
even
got
even
an
con- even condition, because it kind of makes this seem like something unnatural, where this is actually just nature at work, like
yeah.
I think.
Oh! Don't get me wrong on the idea of the word condition. It's just a it's a it's a medical word to describe something. You know, when it comes to intersex, it's not stating that it's unnatural by any means. Like, you know, it could be natural to be born with cancer, but that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that it's not that it's in the norm to be born like that. It's not, you know, and that's
yeah,
true of intersex. Like most of the time, you're going to be born with one set of genitals or the
yeah,
other.
that's what I mean. But in that case, I think we should also in that case we would also need to call cis being born cis a condition, because while it's not as usual, and while it's not as norm was not as usual as, for example, being born intersex, um it's still a part of humanity as a whole. That's why This is
Oh
why I
no, no,
said
no! It's not
that
othering it
Lady
at
Raincoat
all.
has a good argument in that, with that actually we are not just I don't know what the specific term was that she used, but that sex is not just binary, and that we're not a binary sex species in terms of we don't have just only two genitals as a species.
Yeah, yeah, and
I'm
I
gonna
agree with
I,
that.
I'm gonna head off.
Okay.
You two enjoy yourself. I'm just gonna link some studies for you, Kiara, if you want to read it. If you don't,
Yeah, sure.
that's up to you.
No,
Yeah,
no, go ahead, please do.
And the rest.
we're all good here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. From my point, absolutely.
Okay, great. Me too.
Scuffed, you good?
Nice talking to
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Thank you.
Okay,
Always.
okay, all right, we're cool. I just want to make sure.
I'm a bit sick, so my voice is like failing.
Yeah, no, I understand. I've been fighting that off.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I
Cool.
mean, that's the main
Cool.
thing I wanted to do. I wanted to find a point of agreement because, like, I think the point of disagreement was kind of minute in a lot of ways because it really boiled down to, I believe, you know, I believe there could be this thing, but we don't know, and you
Mhm.
know, I believe that the science says no, and just leave it at that. But we can really get to just this little schism of, there is this possibility. I mean, I think there is a possibility too, because there is a reason why we have hormones, and hormones affect the body in the way that it does.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it gets really, really deep into genetics, and we're just not there yet. Maybe we'll figure it out someday. And I mean, I would love to do it in a society where we've mostly rejected gender roles. It's something that I see going on in the chat with Micah. Doesn't realize that he's kind of toying with the ideas of gender abolition, but in a very not a very productive way, I'll say. Like, I'm trying to call him out for that, but like, he's trying to do it against Harley Quinn, and it's this kind of thing where it's like, you don't realize what you're saying actually plays into the idea of gender abolition. It's shitty in the way that you're putting it, but like we can get there. Like, this is where these conversations are productive, and we don't need to necessarily get heated. I appreciate you both coming in and having that conversation. I think it was really well done.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. And I hope some things have been kind of cleared up, even if that was a bit
it got a little heated at points.
Yeah, but we came down. Hey, we all came down, and we got to an agreement. So yeah, I guess that we in conclusion we can probably say, and we can say that there is a high likeness of this having a biological reason, of just having a reason like a genetic component to it, especially because of the effects that hormones can have.
Yeah, and everything from mood to bodily hair, and like all these things are controlled. These are functions controlled initially from your central nervous system. There's got to be a reason for that. It's just we don't know, which is kind of cool to think about.
It is. I really like that. But I guess that it can also be said that it's also I very much so think based on society, and society does have a lot of impact on it. However, the reason why I often am very careful with saying that is
Alexander,
all
thank
because
you
of
for the follow-up.
society is because it makes for a very, very easy argument to say that's just a choice then.
Yeah. No, I see that. That is
and I
where.
know that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. You're fine. Go ahead.
Damn it, we're too nice.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm saying that for example, I really very often experience that a lot of TERFs saying, because a lot of TERFs making their point based on that, if we say that, well, it's just society, well, then you're just making a choice, and then I don't have to take your choice as valid.
True. It's just one of those things that kind of edges towards a could be potentially dangerous precedent. I get that. Like, that's some of the conversations that I definitely try to stop. Like, if someone's leaning into, like, we brought up the idea of skull size, if someone wants to turn that into phrenology, that's where I say, no, the baseline is higher. This is where I really love Vivian's argument when she's talking about sports, where they talk about the average male has a larger lung capacity and things like that, and she asks, is it basically impossible for a female to be born with just as long top level lung capacity as a male? And that is very possible. That's a good argument. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not 100% predictive, but it's a possibility, and the idea that it's a possibility is kind of exciting and kind of cool. The human body, like, I always talk about my experience in medical. The reason I'm always I love medical stuff. Like it's interesting as hell to learn more about the human body. It's fucking gross as hell, but it's like it's this intricate system, and it's cool to me.
Yeah. When I come across the talk about transgender people not being allowed in sports, in terms of, you know, trans women not being allowed in women's sports, etc. That always kind of reminds me on the arguments that have been brought up when it came to racial segregation, because a lot of what the arguments on racial segregation were often based on was that people said, well, there's differences in biology between white people and black people because black people are taller or shit like that, you know. And that's because we should separate the whites from the blacks in sports and crap. And
Yeah. And like
today I very
then we
often
can
hear the
have
same argument in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, then we can have the argument about like how our effects on their lives led to like some selective breeding to lead to that end result. You know, the same thing we did with dogs or cats. You know,
Eugenesis.
yeah, it's something we used to do, and that's where it gets a little weird. So I understand taking a little issue with that, but we got to a good baseline, and I like that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I gotta get going. I gotta show my wife some attention.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, see you around. We should talk about on my stream sometime. You should come by sometime.
I'll try to. I gotta make time. Like literally, my stream is like my planned set time, and then all the rest of the time is filled up with like either housework or talking to my wife and spending time with her. It's like so. Hit me up with a time, and I'll make room and set it aside. Okay.
Absolutely, sounds good. Well, see you around. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye, Kiara.